What makes an indie studio stand out to you?
Instills so much confidence. You really know how to work with a team like that.
You got a chance to help start a publishing house.
You always, if you're considering working with a publisher, want to really get to the bottom of like, what are they going to do for you?
On the flip side, what indicates to you that a studio is not quite ready for a publishing deal yet? Hi, and welcome back to Quest Markers. On this show, we talk about video games and the people behind them. I'm Marina. I'm a video game composer, vocalist, sound designer, audio engineer, and your host. And today I am so excited to have Rachel with us. Rachel is a returning guest and works both on the dev and publishing side. She's currently a producer at Scaffold and Akupara Games, as well as a game scout at Spiral Up Games, and has held various other roles in the industry, helping games both get made and get funded. So today we'll be focusing the conversation on business development and securing funding for independent game studios and what publishing looks like. I'm so excited to have Rachel with us. Rachel, before we get into your introduction, how are you staying hydrated? What are you drinking?
I have a raspberry goji rose kombucha.
Ooh. That's really pretty packaging.
It is. I love a good box art.
Yeah, me too. That always gets me. I'm like, ooh, pretty? Yes.
Yeah, all I need is a good steam capsule and I'm in.
You also always have the coolest drinks whenever we catch up. You're like, I have this cool kombucha that nobody knows about, but I do.
Needs sweet treat to stay motivated.
I think that's completely reasonable. I think a sweet treat is needed a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're thinking about getting a sweet treat, you should probably get a sweet treat. I'm just saying.
100%. Never any downside.
You've already had your coffee. I have my first coffee. So if I seem tired today, it's because I am only on my first coffee and I have water. So we're dual wielding. Rachel, could you please tell us about yourself?
Yeah. So like you were saying, I've worked in the industry in publishing and development. I absolutely love funky, narrative-driven, mechanically innovative games. That's something I've loved my whole time playing games. And the thing I love most about working in this industry is just getting to work with such passionate, creative people who want to create compelling experiences that just make you think about how you interact with media and yourself and all those great things. So worked in publishing, worked in development, and just all about helping people make cool, innovative games that bring something new to the space.
So you've been in the industry for a while. You've been on both the dev side and as well as the funding publishing side. Tell us a bit about your path getting into the industry. What did that look like?
Yeah, so I'd always loved working with creative people. So even before I went to university, I was, working in theater, and then I was working in like literary publishing for a while. But my university actually had a games program, so I double majored in game design, did a bunch of those classes, and it was a dream of mine to start a studio when I was a student. But I'm also pretty risk averse, so I was looking at the industry. That seemed pretty hard, and I didn't really understand how the industry worked. So I thought, maybe if I go into more of the like business side, I can use like all my skills of like managing people, managing teams, actually getting like creative things made. And then I'd be able to learn a lot about how the industry works rather than like throwing myself and any friends I could rally with me into like a wood chipper we didn't understand. So that's what I did. I got my first job at a publisher like the day after I graduated at Modus, this like global publisher, and then it's just been making games ever since. To 3 different publishers now. Worked with one developer, and yeah, I guess 4 publishers. I keep forgetting. I guess technically I've worked with 4 publishers.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, and also I didn't know that you landed that first job just as you graduated.
That's one of my
Of course you did.
That's one of my favorite fun facts, because that last semester of university was so chaotic. And I think of my cohort, like only a few of us have ended up working directly in the industry. And I just remembered looking at like the years before us and feeling so stressed, like, oh my gosh, like it seems so hard to get an industry job. So I think I like applied hundreds and hundreds of places. And the relief I felt when I got that first industry job was huge, because you kind of don't know that you can get in until you get in. And even then you're like, can I stay in? Which I
Yeah,
think everybody is thinking about now.
I was gonna say, with where the industry has been the last few years, it has been a wild ride. Is the only way to succinctly put it. Like, there's we could do
Yeah.
like a whole set of episodes on that.
Yeah.
But so going back into game publishing, could you start by laying a foundation for us? Could you tell us what a game publisher is and does? And are there different kinds of publishers?
Yes, 100%. So, like, in the most, like, fundamental sense, a game publisher is in charge of getting games to market, right? So from concept to release, a publisher can come in at various stages. Sometimes publishers back a project from the very beginning, so from the concept phase. They're funding a project, and then they're shepherding it through all different stages of release, and then they're managing the go-to-market plan, like getting the game on platforms, doing business development deals, and things like that. That's like what it looks like when a publisher comes in from the very beginning and funds a game. Now, not all publishers do that, because that's the publisher taking a high level of risk. They might do that if they have like the adequate funding and, I guess, confidence as an entity, both in themselves and in the project. It's not always about it purely about being confident in a project. A publisher has to know that they can provide value through all those stages. Some publishers just come in at a midpoint where the game's already gotten to maybe an alpha or beta stage, and then they're just funding it through those last cycles and then getting it out. And sometimes publishers come in at the very end with finishing funds, just getting it out to the market. Sometimes publishers don't fund games at all, um, and the studio themselves funds the project, and the publisher just provides marketing services or like go to market support. So there's all different ways that can work, and all publishers aren't the same. What marketing means at a publisher can be very different from one publisher to another. Do they have in-house marketing, or are they outsourcing marketing, or are they doing very light touch marketing for you? Business development also can look really different. Like, are they just going to put your games on platforms where they get deals, or are they also going to put your games on every third party they can find? So, marketing can look different at every kind of publisher. Business development can look different at every kind of publisher. And that's just kind of determined by who's on their team, where have they worked before, what do they like know how to do, and like what relationships does that publisher have, and also like what bandwidth do they have, right? A larger publisher probably has more bandwidth, more team members, and so they can do things like, manage a lot of your submissions for you, go after deals, things like that. A smaller publisher might say, hey, we'll try to get you like larger deals, but some of these smaller things like event submissions and whatnot, like they might still ask teams to do. So you always, if you're considering working with a publisher, want to really get to the bottom of like, what are they going to do for you? And if they say, well, we're going to do marketing and we're going to do biz dev and we'll give you production support, understand in those areas like what's important to you, because those words can mean very different things based on which publisher you're working with.
That's really good advice. And then maybe again, to finish laying the foundation, what does it mean to be a game scout?
Yeah, so a game scout, I guess in the most fundamental sense, is somebody who is finding projects for a publisher and establishing and nurturing relationships with game developers. So I've done game scouting at a few different places. So it can look different based on the publisher as well, like how much control the game scout has. At Astra, I built our scouting funnel, and I was in charge of like the whole process from initiating relationships through taking them through the deal and negotiation phase right to the end. And then I would even sometimes be the handoff to myself and then be the person producing the project. So that was a process where it was like very high level of input and oversight into every part of the process, and I could really advocate for developers through that process. Working with Spiral Up, I'm purely just initiating conversations, forming and maintaining relationships, and bringing them games and saying, "Hey, this game looks good. You should talk to this team." And then I'm out of the process from that point with them. We just have different layers there. Finding games, evaluating games, talking to cool devs.
That just sounds fun.
It's pretty fun. I like it.
I love that. You mentioned at the start that initially, a few years back, you were thinking about starting your own studio. Maybe that is something that's still in the cards in the future, but you got a chance to help start a publishing house. So tell us a little bit about what that was like.
Yeah, that was really cool. After I'd worked at my first publisher for a bit, I saw this new publisher was looking for a producer, and it was really interesting because it was like focused on cerebral puzzle games, which I'd totally nerded out on in my game design degree. So it ended up being this like wildly perfect fit in ways I never could have anticipated. I got to work with all the people that I'd like studied in school, all these like really cool like puzzle and systems designers. And that was a nonprofit investment fund that was investing in games, which was unprecedented. There was nothing like it. It was founded by some really cool people, one of whom, Eileen Hollinger, is like from the games industry. Now she runs Capybara Games. Shout out Eileen. She's like the coolest, one of the coolest people in the whole industry, I think. But it was interesting because we were a nonprofit fund that was fully funded. So we didn't have a lot of the concerns typical publishers have. We could kind of just look at projects we believed in and say, okay, let's just fund that. So that part was really unique. But the core challenge was, as we were transitioning from a fund to a publisher, as an organization, we had to learn how to publish games, which is part of why like they hired me. I'd had publishing experience. I'd like kind of done the whole pipeline. So it was establishing how we published games as a publisher. So like, okay, what is our deal flow plot process like? How do we shepherd teams through milestones as they're working on games? And then how do you talk to Xbox and PlayStation and like all the third parties, and like how do we evaluate which games are best for us and we know best how to market? Which there's a lot there, and the figuring out how to talk to first parties is a whole thing because you can't Google it. So you have to kind of, take in the industry knowledge through friends, back channels, getting resourceful. So it was a whole process learning all those things as a team.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot, but it also sounds really fun because it's like I feel like at that point in helping to start a company, you have multiple hands in you have your hands in multiple cookie jars. That to me sounds fun.
Yeah, it was pretty wild because I was hired as a producer, but I was doing the game scouting and biz dev from the beginning, and then eventually my role evolved to like have biz dev and game scout as my title, but I was still doing production. So one of those situations where you get to wear multiple hats at one company, and then that put me in a position where now I can wear hats across various places. So that's fun.
I love that. Personally, I feel like I've always enjoyed being more of a generalist and like knowing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then synthesizing all of that knowledge together. I just find it fun.
Absolutely.
You've met a ton of devs across the years. I feel like I'd have a lot of fun just meeting a ton of devs.
Yes.
What? Sorry.
It's
early.
It's so fun, but I hate it's like you meet so many more people than you can reply to, and that's always the hard part.
Yeah, because I mean everybody is seeking funding, right? Like there's a lot of people that I'm sure reach out or that you find and like it must be difficult to select kind of who gets funded. But in your opinion and in your experience, what makes an indie studio stand out to you when they're seeking funding?
Ooh, this is a great question. I mean, I think something really important to keep in mind is like it's not just about like is your game good? Like is your idea good? Or like is your team experienced? It's kind of just about do you have a fit with what the market is looking for right now?
Mm,
Like what players are looking for? Like there's, different categories do better on Steam, and then some categories are harder to stand out in than others. And so it's not just about like, okay, do you have a good idea for your category? But like also, are you answering like a need for the players in that category? Like, oh, tactics players, have all these different types of games to choose from, and like their common pain points are this, and you're making something that's going to like address those pain points or like put something new that's not been there. So like you want to find like, but it's not just about finding a fit for the market. It's also if you want a publishing deal, it also has to be a unique fit
mm,
for that specific publisher, which is another thing I'd emphasize. Like you can have an amazing game and something that truly is like a fit for the market and get rejected by a ton of publishers just because it's not a fit for what they think they're looking for or what they're set up to do. So, yeah, I think the thing that makes a team really stand out is like having a clear sense of what you're making and why you're making it for a reason beyond just, well, I like this thing.
mm,
And I think other people will like this thing. I think having like an articulated reason of like, well, I like this thing. And in this space, there's nothing else that does X, or most games do Y, and players have this complaint. And I want to like speak to that core complaint or that core desire. Like, I think that really stands out. And in a pitching environment, I think just having awareness over like there's what you are hoping for to make your project, and then there's also what's like financially scalable and what makes sense from a risk perspective. So like just having awareness around like how you're going to make the thing in a way that doesn't put a ton of risk on your studio or whoever you're asking to like fund your studio is another thing to just if you can show awareness around that, you'll really stand out.
That's interesting. That's really, I think, good advice and good tidbits to keep in mind. Especially like what you said about fit, right? Going back to when you were introducing what publishing is that every publisher is a little bit different and does things a little bit differently and is maybe targeting a certain kind of type of player, a certain type of game. And so there has to be that fit so that it's a mutually beneficial relationship, it sounds like.
Yeah, and like all publishers have different budgets. Some publishers fund up to 10 million, some fund up to 2 million, some fund up to usually 500K, some fund up to 200K. Some are hoping to not put any money into projects at all. And they all have different genre focuses. They all have different humans at them
Mhm.
that have different aesthetic like preferences and genre preferences. So I just think the thing I'd definitely emphasize if you're pitching is like, if you really believe in your idea and you vetted it, like, be open to feedback, but don't always take it so much to heart because it's not always
Mm,
about you or what you're making. Just listen to like the players most of all.
mm, that's interesting. I like that a lot. Um, on the flip side, what indicates to you that a studio is not quite ready for a publishing deal yet?
Being really passionate about what you're making, but not sure about what it's doing, like as a product on the market, right? So like if like, okay, we really have this game we want to make, and it's because we all love these types of games, but then not thinking about like, but what is it going to mean for us to make this? Like, what's like, we're going to make this big farming game with like all this big narrative and all this stuff. But like, okay, so that means you need to have a pipeline to make all those assets, to make all that narrative content. You're going to have to work in phases. You're going to need there to be like outside like player feedback at like key phases. You also are going to need to have the game ready at certain points for things like trailer capture, marketing, and things like that. And you don't need to like know all this per se or have like answers to it, but you do need to understand that like you're going to need to work in this like very disciplined process so that you know, get the game out on time enough so that no one suffers. Like all games slip, nothing's ever truly on time, but you just want to be aware of like how you're making the thing. And then beyond, hey, we really like this and we want to make it, like, okay, but what's actually like the fit? Like, you know, who are you appealing to and why? And I think awareness around those things will really help. The hardest thing can be when people I care about teams so much, and it's especially like in the pitching process, you can get so attached and be like, oh, I love these devs, they have this really cool vision and like the best personalities, and like I want them to achieve their dreams. And so the hardest thing is when it's like they're so close but they're just not like understanding how to get the thing from this amazing dream they have to something that can actually like get out onto the market and like make enough money for them to keep making another game. Cause like that's the thing I want. Like if you're a dev with a cool project, I want you to get to make another cool project.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
not burn out on this one in an endless cycle.
Yeah. It sounds like, to summarize what you've been saying, it sounds like rigor on the business side and the production side are really, really important.
Yes, you have to be aware that you are making something that you're going to sell to people. Getting the thing out is one part, and then making sure the thing is appealing to people is another part.
I guess on the flip side, and we've already touched on this, but what indicates to you that a studio is ready for a publishing deal? Like kind of early on when you meet them?
Yeah, there's been some teams that like I've talked to and they're so smart in how they're going about everything. There's one team I met where they had this idea for like a dream game they wanted to make eventually. And so their pathway to getting there was, well, we're going to make these 3 different games. And so, because the thing we want to make is very systemically demanding. So their whole like thing as a studio was, we know we can't tackle that big thing yet. So game 1, we're tackling like, how do we make like a factory system game? And then in game 2, we're going to tackle open world combat. And then by the time we get to game 3, we can merge these things into this big experience we want to create. And that sort of philosophy was reflected in how they were thinking about each game. They had a clear sense of like, how do they work together as a team? Like who has say on like what aspects of the game? How are they had a clear sense of just how they're making the thing. And then they had such a clear sense of who they're making it for and like what needs they were satisfying in those people. That team really stood out, and it was one where I just felt like, okay, you need no advice. You just need someone to like put this thing on the market for you. That's so cool.
I mean, yeah, that's an incredible level of awareness. And to your point, like it sounds like they knew. They're like, yeah, game 1 this, game 2 this, we're gonna get experience from this game, we're gonna get experience from this game as well, we're gonna see what works, what doesn't, we're gonna stress test the systems, and then we'll make the dream game. And so follow-up question for that, have you seen, like whether in your work or whether speaking to peers, have you seen publishing deals typically look like one game, or have there been instances where, you know, someone might sign a multi-game deal?
Oh, that's super interesting. Definitely at larger publishers, that can be a thing. That's not something that I've personally worked with as much on the publishing side.
Like we've worked together before. I mean, I currently playtest for Strange Scaffold, and I playtested on Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3.
Yes, Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3 was my last project with the studio.
But like they're I don't know. I feel like the games are not afraid of being different and being funny. And yeah, like Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion, when I 3 specifically, when I play tested, I remember I was having a blast because I'm like, who wrote this game? Anyway, I'm taking us down a tangent. One thing that I've observed having worked together a couple times now is that, like, I know when I'm working with you, the team it can rest easy, right? Like you've got us. You're a fantastic producer, very organized. You make sure that things happen on time, and you keep us kind of all on the same page. So I'm curious, how have your production skills helped you outside of game production? Like perhaps when you're scouting or when you're discussing marketing with a potential studio. Um,
Yeah, it helps a ton, right? Because when you're a producer, I mean, even in a publishing context, it's a different type of production than development production. But in a publishing context, it's really about like how close you can get to the team. And so sometimes you're basically doing development production if everybody will let you. And I think the main things that you get to learn through producing a project is like, how do I help a group of humans come together and like make their pipelines and like get the thing made, but also most importantly, like I think some of the hardest things in game production aren't the technical problems. It's not making the schedule or like figuring out what we need to make next and in what order. It's usually some very unique human problems about like, hey, this area has been falling behind, and it's not for technical reasons. It's for like a personal reason at times. And so learning how to get to the bottom of that can really help you when, talking to teams at an earlier stage and helping them figure out how to anticipate going through the process. But the technical stuff also does really help. Like we were saying earlier, it's not enough just to make the game. You also have to market it, which sometimes can be really brutal because if you're having to make a trailer build at a certain phase in development, sometimes that can mean you're scrambling to get all the art into the game, to get to the game in a good enough place where it looks like a game, even if it doesn't
mm,
play like a game yet. And if you're not anticipating these things, it can lead to, and even if you are anticipating these things and have them on the schedule, it can still lead to like some crunchy times, for sure.
I always say this, but it is truly a miracle that games get made. Like with the amount of we've both worked in engine, with the amount of things that can go wrong. And then you get errors and you're like, but I didn't change anything. Like what
Yeah.
happened? Like it's mind-boggling to me that games even get made. Um, Staying on kind of the topic of production and specifically your production experience, how has that helped you in identifying a game studio's ability to deliver on their production timelines? Having had so much production experience yourself.
Yeah, and it's always the thing where, I try to just show up with curiosity. Sometimes you get a pitch and the team's like, we're going to make this whole thing and it's going to have all these features and we're at this point in the timeline and it's going to have all this stuff by this point and we're this many people. And sometimes you just look at that and go, that doesn't seem like a lot of time.
Mm,
And so I think just like, getting curious about like, okay, well, like, how are you imagining getting from point A to point B? And like, how, especially like if a team's made something like that game before, then, you can have a lot.
mm,
Sometimes you don't even need a big detailed timeline from them if a team's making something just like what they've made before. But for a newer team who doesn't necessarily have something in that genre before, there's a lot of questions around like, okay, but what are your plans for player feedback? Have you done any play testing so far? Because you can be working on the game and feeling like it's going good, but
mm,
until you've gotten, and not just 5 or 10 of your friends, but
mhm,
like a good section of like impersonal feedback, can just surface so many issues, especially issues that you might not be anticipating about as the developers. Things as simple as like people don't understand how this section works, or they're not understanding how to interact with it, or the payoff isn't what it is. And that kind of feedback will just blow up any development timeline. And I think it's actually pretty surprising how far teams will get before they've done external feedback. I would definitely recommend being less precious about that because you can always ignore feedback, but the sooner you get it, the sooner it can help you. Um, and then I think just asking, you know when are you planning on having like marketing assets ready and things like that? And how are you planning on getting from an alpha where you have like the groundwork for all the systems in to a beta where you now have all the content in? What's that going to look like for your team? So just kind of sussing out the points that make sense, or are there points that teams have even thought about?
That makes sense. How would you recommend that studios who are kind of early on get that feedback from people who, aren't friends? Like, is that something that a publisher can help with, or is it more of a go on social media and like see if you can find people who are interested in playtesting and stress testing?
I'm pretty nerdy about this. Like every publisher I've worked at, I've always gotten pretty involved in playtesting, and I have a lot of thoughts because a publisher can help you with it, but they might not. And sometimes they'll do a really great job, and sometimes, you know, it. What you really want when you're doing a playtest is you want people who you do want some general feedback, like some general feedback is okay, but you really want people who play that type of game,
Mm,
you
mhm.
know, and you want different types of people who play that type of game or would be interested in playing that type of game. Like getting general feedback when you're working on like a tactics game or a farming sim or a platformer. It's like I don't necessarily need to know what someone who only plays platforming games thinks of a farming sim, and I don't necessarily need to know what someone who plays farming sims thinks of my crunchy tactics game. I might want some general impressions, but I really want like in-depth like thoughts from people who are actually gonna potentially buy it. And I really don't think you need too much outside support from this. All you need to do is go to Reddit. They have r
Mm,
slash
mhm.
everything. There's a subreddit full of people who like the thing that you want to make. And all you have to do is just post and be like, hey, I'm making something. Do you want to check my thing out? You can come to my Discord, and then I'll give you a Steam key, and I guarantee you will find so many people who are happy to do this. There are so many gamers that game for nothing but love of it, and you can find extremely dedicated playtesters who
Mm.
want nothing more than to help you.
And to your point, like I do really feel like that stress testing is so important early on, because even let's say you even do that before approaching a publisher, then you can approach publisher conversations saying, "Hey, we've done rigorous play testing. This and this and this are, the big themes that came out of that. Here is how our production timeline changed because of that, or here's how, something else in the game maybe changed because of that." So, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Um, Keeping track of time, because I want to have some time for us to do a Q&A. I've started wrapping up with this question, and I really like it because it's the answers that come out of it are very heartfelt. So you've been in the industry for a while now. You have touched so many parts of the industry. You've met so many studios and have supported so many studios. You've also been on the dev side and currently are. So if you could give your younger self advice, what would it be?
Oh, I'm definitely a perfectionist, and I feel like I need to know everything before I do it. I'd probably encourage myself to just be more confident, and put myself out there for more things. But at the same time, I like being perfectionist and I like knowing things before I do them. So I don't know. I'd probably just say get good, like try harder.
Or, like stepping into the unknown a little bit more comfortably, knowing that like you've got yourself.
Yeah, but the one thing I've learned is more people know less than you think.
Mm. I mean, we're all
Even
just figuring it out as
publishers.
we go.
Some publishers are figuring it out as they go. Some are extreme lean machines that know what they're doing and they've done it many times. Um, same with developers. So
Yeah. Yeah. I know tons of people, myself included, who are figuring it out as they go, and you learn new information and then you apply that new information to your life and how you work. And I think being open to learning is really, really important.
Yes, and being open about what you don't know, I think, is one of the most confident things that you can possibly do.
Agreed.
A team who can say, "Hey, we don't know this and this and this. This is what we do know," instills so much confidence, so much like you really know how to work with a team like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Do you have any final words of wisdom for studios seeking publishing deals?
Ooh, yes. I really want you to be able to make your second game. I really don't want you to get stuck on this first game and, you know, struggle to find a deal or struggle to finish making it. And so I really hope that you keep, working on that idea that makes you excited, but approach it in a way where you get to explore new ideas soon too.
Yeah, I love that. All right, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on. Anything else that you would like to add before we wrap up and open it up for Q&A?
If you're working on a game, if you're trying to either just put it out yourself or find a publisher, you can always DM me, show me a pitch deck, show me a build, ask me any questions. I'm always happy to. If it's not a fit for a publisher I work with, I can refer you to publishers I know that might be a fit. I can just let you know what I think of your pitch deck, or I can just give you some kind words as you continue on your journey.
That is very kind. That is a very kind offer.
Thank you. I can't speak to how quickly I will get to my DMs, but the offer is open.
Well, you had mentioned that. I mean, obviously, like as more and more studios kind of start, and I don't know, I don't have the data to know like what the rate of acceleration is for new studios starting every year, but I would imagine that is still growing with how much more accessible it's become to make games.
Yeah, I mean, lots of studios. I'm just one person. I have many hats. I do my best. Sometimes I see a really cool game and I would love to reply. And the one thing I would say, if you are in the process of pitching and you're getting frustrated by people not responding, just keep following up. They probably are not intentionally not responding to you. Just keep pinging them at a respectable pace. But never be afraid to follow up.
All right, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on. For everyone who's here or for everyone who's watching the VOD, thank you for being here. As always, our socials will be in the description if you'd like to follow us on social media. And as always, if you have any feedback or topics you'd like to see covered in the future, let us know. Thank you so much again. And we're going to open it up for Q&A. Sorry if you mentioned this earlier, but are you able to talk about how you first got into your role and what is an aspect to the job that you really enjoy?
It's so funny because I read this and I'm like, which role? Which one? The producing, the biz dev, or the game scouting? I got into production because I'd always like managed creative teams, and I just love helping a bunch of creative people like get the thing done and like still love working together by the end of it. So that's the thing that really brought me to production and is like made me stay really interested in it. I want people to not just get through development, but really enjoy development. And also like, I kind of see like it as a self-actualizing process where like, hey, if you can come out the other side of making this game and feel like you learned a lot of things, like that's what makes me feel really excited. With game scouting, I'd always been super interested in it. I had no idea how you got that job. And then I somehow ended up with that job just by virtue of like getting involved at the top of the funnel at publishers, and then I got to create the funnel at that one publisher. And now I just get to scout games, and that's super fun. But it's really only possible because I'd spent so much time building up a network. But it's just as simple as like approaching people who you know make cool games, keeping your eye out at places where people post cool games, shaking trees and hoping cool games fall out.
Yes, the Animal Crossing method. Rachel, you had mentioned you had applied for over 100 positions as you were graduating.
Yes, for
till
my
then, that first
first
gig?
job, it was, like, hundreds and hundreds, and I was applying for all sorts of things, like, I was interviewing for, like, narrative design roles even, I was interviewing for, like, puzzle design roles, like, you definitely want advice, and you definitely want advice from experts in the industry. Um, if the advice you get feels like it's thoughtful and, points to specific things and helps you figure out, "Oh, you know what? I'm making something cool, but they're right. There isn't like a strong, like, I'm not answering like a question or a need from this community." And that advice can help you see that, or it can point out production or financial risks. That's super helpful advice. And you should definitely listen to that. But if you just get a general thing of like, I
Mm,
don't get it, I don't think it works, like, I would just say don't take it to heart because I think there's so many cool devs that are making amazing projects that have gotten advice like that and still like gone on to put their game out and been really successful. So take the advice that seems structured and pointing to specific things, and maybe take other advice that seems rooted in personal preference with a grain of salt.
mm,
Just keep making your thing and keep listening to players.
mm. I feel like that's been a big theme of like listen to players because ultimately
Yeah,
like those are the people who are gonna support it, right? And who are gonna buy it and who are gonna tell their friends about it
and that's
and
another
hopefully really
reason to
enjoy
do
it.
early play testing, right?
Mm,
That's like one of the quickest tests you can do. If I'm making um, a tactics game and I post in like the r/tactics, or I'm making like an automation game and I post in the automation subreddit, and I'm like, hey, I'm making this thing. It's kind of like this. Do you want to play it? You're already gonna get like a lot of feedback on like your hook, the framing, like how excited are the play testers to check it out.
mm,
And like that's some of the quickest feedback you can get. And I would just say don't be shy about doing that. There can be a sense of like, but I shouldn't post about my thing at all. If you post just a bit, you can still like pivot, you can still adjust your idea. And I think, you know, audiences actually really love getting to see a game evolve over the years, or being to look back over a history of that.
um, Rachel, I promised I would get you out on time, so I'm getting you out on time. Do you have any final thoughts? Words
Ooh,
of wisdom
words of wisdom.
or
If
anything
you want to
else?
make a game, I think you should make it, and I think you should show it to people while you make it. And definitely
Mm,
earlier than you want to. Like, I think from the moment you come up with the idea, you can, like, kinda write it down, and then you should start telling people about it and listening to what they have to say, and then you need to build as soon as possible. It does not need to be the you will just work on this build the whole time, and you should also show that to people as
mm,
soon as possible. That doesn't mean, like, putting it out on Steam as soon as possible. Don't do
mhm,
that. Don't do that. There's a whole science to how you set up your Steam page and when you put it up. But, like, please find people who play the games that are like the game you wanna make, and please show it to them, and
mm,
that will help a lot. We don't wanna get
mm,
stuck in the cycle of noodling and pitching. That's the
mm,
that's the bad zone.
mm. Can I add something to that from
Mhm.
my just like random life experience is that the times that I have done things where I haven't felt 100% ready have been the times that I have grown the most. And
Yes.
it is scary as hell because similar to you, I want to know everything before I or as much as I possibly can before I dive into something, but the times that I have like accepted the discomfort of I don't know everything, I'm gonna try doing this way before I'm ready and let's see what happens. I feel like I have grown the most, just from like
Yes.
a personal growth
I
perspective.
love that. Except that you will not feel ready, and that's when
Mm.
you know that you're ready.
Mm.
If you
That is
feel
a
ready, you're not
Pinterest quote
ready.
right there.